Hi everyone. Today we will learn about transportation in plants. And before we move ahead, I would like to give a brief definition on transportation. Transportation means it is a process which involves the movement of water and all the other necessary nutrients in all the parts of the plant. All right. We have learned in the previous lesson about how the plants absorb, how the plants take carbon dioxide from the air, minerals and water from the soil, and we see that how the plants make their own food with the help of these nutrients, the carbon dioxide from the air, minerals and water from the soil, with all these things in the presence of sunlight. The plants synthesize their own food, and with the natural phenomena is called photosynthesis, and the bioproduct we have seen is glucose. Glucose, you can say sucrose also. This sucrose, it helps in the growth and development of plant, the overall structure of plant. The plant grows with the help of this sucrose. And water vapor is being evaporated in the air again, in the atmosphere, into the atmosphere it is being evaporated. So the byproducts of photosynthesis, like sucrose, glucose, all these are involved in the growth and development of plant. And the water vapor which is released, which is also a byproduct of photosynthesis, it helps. It is evaporated in the atmosphere, right? So, all these things we will have to know how the food, food which is glucose, Ch-6, how this is being transported, to the plant, the overall structure of plant, where does it goes and how does it goes. All these things we have to see, we will learn it. And the other point number 2 is water. Water, how it is being absorbed, how it is being transported throughout the plant, and how it is being evaporated to the atmosphere. All these things we will learn under the framework of transportation in plants, right? And I hope you will be attentive, and if you are able to concentrate, if you focus, properly, without any restrictions, then you will be able to grip the gist, you will be able to grip the concept, right? So science is something which is very complicated something. But if you know the concept, if you know the topic, it's very, very easy and you will be able to write by your own. So without wasting time, let us move ahead. There is two vascular tissues. One is phloem and xylem, right? These two vascular tissues, it helps in the transportation of food, water, and minerals, right? So these two vascular tissues, phloem and xylem, it plays a very vital role in the growth and development of plant, in the transpiration, in the evaporation of water from the plant leaves, And two vascular tissues I have mentioned is very, very important. You should know this. The xylem transport water and other minerals, and the phloem, it translocate or transport food particles. All right. So all these things we will see in a much lighter, in much broader perspective. All right. Let us consider this is a tree. All right. So in a tree, actually, how does the transportation takes place is, see the water. There is a water in the underneath the land. There's underground water. You see that we usually pull water from the well. All these things come from the underground, right? There is underground water going upwards. There's the roots. I have told you before that there's two vascular structures, vascular tissues, which are involved in transportation. Right. Number 1 is xylem. 2 is phloem. Right. So there is here in this roots, in these roots there is a xylem. The xylem is a microscopic structure. You will be able to see with our naked eyes, you will be able to focus with some microscope only. There's a xylem. Xylem in the root. These xylems are told the vascular tissue. Right. It's a hollow structure. Right. Hollow structure you will be able to see in microscope. So what does this xylem do is, the water that comes in the from the underground, it gets stored in the xylem. Right. It gets stored in the xylem, and after some time it is pulled upward. It is pulled upward by the transpiration pull. Alright. The forces involved are the forces involved in the pulling of water. Surface tension. Alright. Osmosis. Right. This process is called the pulling of water, which is called as transpiration. Right. And this pulling of water, it is regulated by surface tension or osmosis. There is a concentration gradient. There is a difference of ions that come from the underground water. At the root level there is a xylem. Right. In the roots there is a xylem. So the xylem, which is in the root cells, it get in contact with the soil. Right. This soil is here. Here's the soil. So the soil activity take up the ions. Ions are there, and ions from the water, ions and so many things. It gets trapped with the root cells. Right. These are root cells. And soil activity, that there are so many things in the soil, and minerals will be there, ions, water vapor, water molecules, all these things will get stuck, will get in contact with this root. Right. And after that, this creates, because of this creates a concentration gradient, difference in the concentration. Here there would be more ions for initially, but after some time here it will be more ions. Right. And because of the pulling force that taking place, the ions, sometimes it goes more towards these root cells. Alright. The water and the ion moves towards the root, this root, right, from the soil, to eliminate the differences. Right. The water move from the soil towards the roots to eliminate the difference of ions present in the roots and the soil. Right. I hope you're clear with this meaning. Right. So this means that there is a steady movements of water into the root xylem. Right. This means that there is a steady movements of water into the root xylem, creating a column of water that is steadily pulled upwards. There's a movement of water from the soil to the root xylem, and there's a creation of water column. Water column is created here in the root xylem, and after some time, it gets pulled upwards. Here, in the trunk, from the trunk, branch, everything. Now, first of all, we will see transport of water. Right. Transport of water. I have told you before that there is two vascular tissues. One is xylem and another is phloem. Right. Xylem is involves in the transportation of water. Right. So in xylem tissue, before we move ahead, in order to not have confusion, I would like to show you a diagram of xylem and phloem. So this is the two tissues of tissues that are involved in transportation in plants. This xylem structure, this tissue. There is only one way. It is moving only upwards. Because it has to pull water from the inside, right? It has to pull water from the roots, from the xylem roots. Here is the roots, tree roots. There's a xylem. Xylem is a vascular. It is everywhere. It is in the roots. It is in the stems. It is in the leaves. It is in the branch. Everywhere you'll find a xylem tissue. Roots also have trunk, stems have, leaves has branches have, So the water gets pulled up from the xylem root and it goes upwards. So this is a microscopic structure of a xylem. Okay, so you need to understand. So it goes only upwards, only one way movement. See the arrow marks. Only one way. It is going only one way, right? And another one is phloem, which translocate food. Where does food come from? Food comes from the photosynthesis. Food is made through photosynthesis. All right. So this food has to be translocated, and the food has to travel to the downwards, towards the roots, towards the stems also, and the fruit has to travel upwards, leaves, trunk, stems. All this has require food, right? So it is a two-way movement. There's a two-way movement of food, and there's a one-way movement of water, right? This is a microscopic structure of xylem and phloem, right? I'm showing you this because you will get confused. Where is xylem tissue? What are you talking about? What the teacher is talking about xylem and phloem? This is the phloem and xylem, which is involved in transportation in plants. These two are the main structure in which in the xylem water is transported, in the phloem the food is translocated. Right. So now let us quickly study about the transportation of water. So that means transportation of water we will study only about this xylem. We will study about xylem, how xylem plays a role, how it transport water. All these things we will see. In xylem tissue, right, vessels and tracheates, right, of roots, stems and leaves are interconnected to form a continuous system of water conducting channels reaching all parts of plant. Alright. So in the xylem tissue, vessels and tracheates of the roots, in the roots, the plant roots, vessels and tracheates of roots, stems and leaves are interconnected, All these vessels, tracheates of roots, stem and leaves, all are interconnected, in xylem tissue, because all these things, all these roots and stems and leaves, all of them, they have xylem tissue, right? So all of them are interconnected to form a continuous system of water conducting channels, reaching all parts of plant, right? So everywhere in roots, stems, leaves, there is interconnected, of the xylem tissue to form a continuous system of water conducting channels, reaching all parts of plant, right? So at the roots, I have told this concept before also. At the roots, cells in contact with the soil activity takes up ions. Alright, this creates a difference in the concentration of these ions between the root and the soil. The water moves into the root from the soil to eliminate this difference. Alright, at the roots, roots is in the soil, right? At the roots, cells, cells in contact, cells means the root cells, alright? At the root cells in contact with the soil activity. Soil activity means soil, there's everything going on, decomposition, all these things, manure production, all these things are going on. There will be different ions, there will be water molecules, all these things are in the soil, right? So the root cells in contact with the soil takes up ions. So this creates a difference in the concentration of the ions between the root and the soil, right? Difference in the concentration of these ions means in the root cells there will be more ions, and in the soil there will be less ions because it will already being sucked up, isn't it, by the root cells. So because of this, there is a difference in the concentration, difference in the amount, right? So the water moves into the root from the soil to eliminate this difference. Because of the difference of concentration in the root cells and the soil, the water moves into the root. The water moves into the root from the soil to eliminate this difference, right? I hope you're clear with this point. This is very, very simple. You should know this point. So this means that there is steady movements of water into root xylem, creating a column of water that is steadily pushed upwards. Right. So this means that there is a steady movement of water into root xylem, creating a column of water that is steadily pushed upwards. I hope you are clear with this. I hope you know this. I hope you do not have any confusion. It's written in very, very simple words. Everything is in the textbooks, but you need to understand these things. All right. So now, evaporation. Evaporation of water molecules from the cells of leaves creates a suction which pulls water from the xylem cells of roots. Right. So the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of plant is known as transpiration. Right. This is, I think you are clear. Evaporation of water molecules from the cells of leaves creates a suction which pulls water from the xylem cells of roots. Meaning during evaporation, there is a pulling of, water from the xylem cells of roots. Alright. Evaporation means that during daytime there is a evaporation of water going upward, isn't it, towards atmosphere. So the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of plants is known as transpiration. Right. Aerial parts means this is aerial plant leaves. Right, this is the leaves, plant leaves. So plant leaves, there is aerial parts. From the aerial parts, transpiration, water is being lost. This is called transpiration. This point is very, very important. So I hope you are clear with the transport of water. Right. We will move on to transport of food. Right. Transport of water, it is very important. It takes place in the xylem. You should know that it takes place in the xylem. And if it comes transportation in plants, you write all these things. You write all these points in exams. Now we will see transport of food and other substances, which is here food refers to the glucose, sucrose, which is formed as a result of photosynthesis. The formula of photosynthesis: carbon dioxide plus water is equal to C6H12O6 plus O2. This is the formula of carbon dioxide, right? So this is the glucose. This is the food. This is the food for the growth and development of plant. So we are now we will see the transport of this food, glucose food, into the whole parts of the plant. So point number one is the products. The products of metabolic process. Particularly photosynthesis. Are moved from leaves to other parts of the plant. I hope you are clear with this meaning. The product of metabolic process, particularly photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, in the photosynthesis there is a making of glucose. These are moved from leaves. Photosynthesis takes place in the leaf, so these products are left to this product, which is glucose, is moved to every part of the plant. Right. This transport of soluble products of photosynthesis is called translocation, and it occurs in the part of vascular tissue called phloem. Right. This second point is very important. So the product which is formed as a result of photosynthesis, these soluble products is transported. So this process is called as translocation. This process is called as translocation. Then the transport of soluble products of the photosynthesis is called translocation. Alright, and I've told you earlier that the transport of food takes place in vascular tissue called phloem. Alright, so you remember in in xylem, transport of water takes place, isn't it? And there is a process of transpiration, right? Right. Transpiration is takes place, during the transport of water. Transpiration means pulling off water from the aerial parts of leaves, isn't it? So transpiration takes place in the transport of water, right? And the vascular tissue involved is xylem, right? So this is something you have to be very clear about. Here, in case of transport of food, translocation, a process called translocation is there, and phloem, this phloem. In the transport of food and other substances, translocation and phloem is very important. Translocation means transport of soluble products, and it occurs in the part of phloem, right? And in don't be confused. Let's recall back. In the transport of water, transport of water takes place in xylem, right? And there's a process of pulling of water, movement of water, loss of water, from the aerial parts of the leaves, or plant. That is called transpiration. So you have to be very, cautious about all these things. You should know all these terminologies. I think you might get confused there, so I will make it simple here. Transport of water, transport of food. Number one, where does it take place? It takes place in xylem. What is xylem? Xylem is a vascular tissue. Right. In transport of food, where does it take place? It takes place in phloem, which is a vascular tissue. Right. In transport of water, one process is your transpiration. Alright, which is the loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts of plant, right? And in transport of food, one process, there is a process called translocation. All right. Meaning is translocation. Meaning is transport of soluble products of photosynthesis. Right. So I hope you are clear with this. This is very, very simple. I have made you simplified, in a very simplified manner. Transport of water, transport of food. In the transport of water takes place in xylem, and in the transport of water there is a process called transpiration, which is the loss of water, and so on and so on. In the transport of food, it takes place in phloem. There is a translocation. There is a process called translocation, which is the transport of soluble products of photosynthesis. Means transport of soluble products means transport of food to every parts of the plant. All right. I hope you are clear.